Hello, my name is Craig Madden. I'm a proud Bundjalung Gadigal man from the Eora Nation. I'm here at Sydney University on Gadigal land. Jinura Gadigal, this land is Gadigal. It's customary for Aboriginal people to invite guests or visitors onto our land or country. It's a custom that we've been doing for thousands of years. I'd like to pay my respects to our elders, past, present and emerging, to any visitors from any other nations or countries, to all our non-Aboriginal brothers and sisters, a warm and sincere welcome to Gadigal land, Aboriginal land. The Gadigal clan is one of 29 clans which make up the Eora Nation. It's a nation that's bound by 3 distinct landmarks. So we have the Hawkesbury River to the north, the Nepean River to the west, and the Georges River to the south. Within the confines of those mighty rivers lie the Eora Nation, and the land of the Gadigal people that we stand on are one of the 29 clans of that nation. So on behalf of our Gadigal mob, I'd like to say welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome to the University of Sydney. I'm standing on Gadigal country, where the Gadi people have lived, have loved, and have educated and exchanged knowledge with others across this great nation of ours for tens of thousands of years. The University of Sydney's campuses and facilities are on the ancestral lands of peoples who have loved and known and nourished this land since the very beginning of time. For thousands of generations, they've shared knowledge, they've exchanged learning and understood how it is to be here in this wonderful place that today we call Australia. If you have a look around the campus, you'll see some remarkable places. Some of those places are buildings like our quadrangle, but that quadrangle tells a different story. Many people look at it and see it as the height of European endeavour. Well, that quadrangle, that building that hosts the Great Hall, was built out of sandstone that was quarried on Gadigal and Wongal country, with timber felled from Bundjalung country to the north and mortar that was made from lime and shells that was found on site of this place. Our place is full of stories, woven together and revealing the many, many, many histories of Australia's First Peoples. All of our facilities sit on the ancestral lands of Aboriginal people. There is not a part of Australia that is not known, loved and nourished by Aboriginal people of this land since time began. The university stands on Durrock land in Camden, Wongal country in Lidcombe, Gamilaroi country in Narrabri, Wiradjuri country in Dubbo, and all the way to Bundjalung country in Lismore and Gagadu country in Kakadu. Our staff, students, alumni continue the tradition of teaching and learning upon these lands proudly. As a community, we come together as one Sydney, but many peoples.
Nyunganda Maganiana.
Yamagara.
Yama.
Jinguwala.
Warramai.
Yadama.
Welcome. Welcome to the University of Sydney.
And good afternoon. Welcome to our session this afternoon. My name's Lolda Forrester. I'm a Euroborough South Sea Island woman, and we'll be talking this afternoon with my panel guests here in regards to, we're in 2021. Can we talk about success after 250 years of invasion? So I'd like to introduce my panel here. Norma Ingram, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yamadu Marang. I'm Norma Ingram, or people call me Auntie Norma, which is a respected title that they give to us Aboriginal elders in the community, so I love it. Auntie Norma is fine. So I'm originally, I am Wiradjuri from the Lachlan River, Galair, Cowra, in the Lachlan Valley. And I was born and raised on the Aboriginal Reserve there, Arambi. So I say under the Aboriginal Welfare Act, where we were totally controlled by the state government under that act. So the youngest of 11 children, 7 girls and 4 boys. I have 3 children and 2 granddaughters and 2 great-grandchildren and 1 on the way, so very proud. Yeah. But I've lived on Gadigal country for many years, so I'm still in Redfern, Chippendale, been there for a long time, and yeah, still hanging around there.
Okay, Megan Williams, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who your mob is, where you came from?
Yeah, Yabun and yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm Wiradjuri through my dad's family, and our family are Kudjegong River, the northeast Wiradjuri country around Mudgee. And yeah, really I've spent my life advocating that Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people have more of a say in research, and that Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people lead research as well. And yeah, mother of 2, a 17 and a 19-year-old, and yeah, passionate about stories from the head and the heart, and the combination of the two. Yeah. So.
And Wok. Hey, Wok Wright. Not one of the Wright brothers who invented the planes, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yama, yeah, Gomeroi Maribala, Gwembrai Dian. Yeah, so I'm a Gomeroi man. My clan's a Gwembrai from out around Gunnedah area. That's on my mother's side. My father's people are from Kempsey, Armidale. They're Dungutty and Anawan. So they're my tribal affiliations. And I mean, these days, yeah, I think it's important. We a lot of come from a few different nations and that, so it's good to always acknowledge our mob all around the place. So yeah, that's me. Born and raised in Newcastle, but.
Okay, we're talking about success, and what is there such a thing within our community in 2021? Norma, looking at you, you said you grew up on the Mish. You grew up on the mission out there. What was your ideals what was your ideals about growing up? What you wanted to do?
Geez, the youngest of 11 children, and I had these older brothers and sisters who are all there, yeah, slapping me down. But no, my mother was, she's about 5 foot nothing, and she always believed in education. But we did have the missionaries around, and so we had to go to Sunday school every Sunday, and that's where I learned to read and write at Sunday school from the missionaries. And whilst, when we were on the reserve, on the mission, it was at a time where we didn't have electricity and all of those mods and cons. And for me, it was still fantastic because I had my family there. You know, we didn't have television, it was before television, even the radio. So all of my cousins and who were my brothers and sisters was all there. So, and actually when I went to Teachers College, one of my friends said, why didn't you just walk off the mission? If you was under the Welfare Act, why didn't you just walk off? And quite frankly, whilst I was on the mission, I felt safe because I was with my family and my parents, but still didn't look at how the Welfare Act controlled us. And so many years later, when we did leave the reserve, my mother had to leave the reserve, and I as a teenager, went to the Foundation for Aboriginal Affairs and met people like Charles Perkins and a lot of the other Aboriginal, what they're so-called radicals. I was one of them too. We began to see that how controlled we were, and just see it in a different light, and seeing, what is success from that perspective. We continuously have to fight. We had to fight then for recognition, for what we talk about today, truth-telling, for all of those things that are rightfully ours. And we're still teaching. We're still teaching everybody. Success, I think when the whole of Australia knows, understands, learns, accepts who we are as Aboriginal people, and our rightful place in this country, and that history, the truth history. If that's all acknowledged and accepted, that's on the way to success. But until that all happens, I can't see a great big success in terms of our communities. But I think what we're doing in our communities is we talk about self-determination. That's us controlling, having a say, but we have to have the resources to do that. We have to, not just the money.
Megan, what about yourself growing up? Did you have a dream that who you wanted to be, even though you were Aboriginal? Did you have a dream that you could be, be successful?
Yeah, I think I definitely always had a drive, partly because, really young, we were really close with extended family, Williams family, but then when I was, really just 5 or 6 years old, our mother, who's English background, cut all ties completely, and so it was quite a, regime, I think, that we were brought up with for quite a few years just with her, and that the complete bans on saying anything about being Aboriginal. And even then, there weren't those programs at school that, my kids might have access to now. And I think
so you were aware of your Aboriginality?
Yep, we were from that very young age, and so my, I think it was just very confusing, and that rage was there from a really young age. But the turning point, I think, was in '91 when the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody recommendations were handed down. I was in grade 12 at school, and we had a modern history class where the teacher actually opened up the discussion about that. And for me, I didn't know then that was going to be a story of my own family, losing a cousin in my family in custody, and so that just gave me a focus, and I have never relented on that focus, and I was able to really clean up my act by about 13 or 14 around drinking, and did better in high school than what I thought. And because I was, because of that family breakdown and that disruption, I started school early. So I finished school at 16 and went to uni at 17. And I chose Aboriginal studies. And I remember writing on the form, my mother's going to hate this. But, I wasn't, there was no support there to check what I was putting on the form. And I then learned much more about human rights. And so today I still use those conventions and those statements in my work, and I've got a direct thread right through my 25 years of working consistently to really improve the research and the reporting on the health and wellbeing of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in prisons. It's deplorable. The data has gaps, and there is so much progress we need to make. So I can literally, plan out another 20 odd years to not take that foot off the pedal in terms of really highlighting Aboriginal people's success, for want of a better word, all those solutions that we've got, that we've documented, that the world needs to hear about for their solutions as well.
Okay, Wok, I remember you, kind of rapping, local knowledge, street warriors, but your father was very much involved in the political movement. Yeah. How was it for you? Was your idea of you and your brother kind of getting into rap first, was that to build up your confidence, or a way to express yourself as a young man?
No, well, our music probably started as a result of, we spoke about it a lot, so me and my brother, and we had another mate up in Newcastle there, and we got together because we're all kind of working in the youth space and trying to, we were pretty blessed growing up. We come from strong Aboriginal families, and we were lucky, but when we were working with a lot of the young fellas, we realised that there was a severe disconnection, and we've told the story a lot of times, we'd talk to the young fellas and tell them about whether it be Pemulwuy or Kumjay Perkins or people like that, and ask them, and they wouldn't know anything about him. But then they'd be able to tell us when Tupac was born, when he was shot, pretty much everything about all these different rappers. So we wasn't into rap. So like I said, we're from a black family, so we grew up listening to country music. We loved all that, but we just, not ashamed to say, we kind of just used, we related to the rap music and hip hop because it comes from an oppressed people, but we just use that. And everyone says, oh, hip hop's a culture, it's a cultural, it wasn't really a culture for us. It was just a tool and an avenue for us to, I guess, reach our younger people and promote our real culture, which is Aboriginality. So that was where we come from. Like, our dad hated us when we were doing rap. He's like, what do you think is African Americans? But there was just a method to our madness. We never ever wanted to be anything. We were so blessed and lucky to come from strong political families on, on our mother and father's side. And, we can sort of, our family goes back and, have been involved in a lot of those things. Like, we hear about our old grandmother talking about the place called, I don't even know what it is or was, Aunt might know, but the foundation down here and places and things like that. And so we've heard all those stories, so we're very blessed. But yeah, we just use, like, sorry for anyone who loves rap or hip hop out there, we respect it, but we just use that as a tool to get our messages what we needed, because our kids weren't learning that in schools, and we didn't learn that in schools. We were lucky we learned about our culture and all that sort of stuff off our uncles and aunties, but in particular, a lot of our mob that had been dispossessed and taken away and that type of stuff, there was all black kids at school and they didn't know who they was or where they was from and that, and yeah, that was sort of, that chapter of our life, the music was really just to promote our identity and who we were, and we was loud and proud, and we still are, but we're just probably not as young, and but yeah, that was, like I said, that was just a
Now,
tool.
I remember your dad saying, well, the boys will grow up and they'll get it.
Yeah.
The boys will grow up,
Yeah. Well, he didn't like us doing it,
No,
but then years later, I think he kind of had a bit of, and we've had some great times. I think our greatest ever memory, or one of, was around when Survival Day used to be at Redfern. It was just packed, and I remember we performed there, and yeah, that was probably the highlight of our music. We'd done a lot of those tours with the American artists, and we went over to New York, and we've done all that sort of stuff, but nothing compared to our two pinnacles. Were probably performing at Survival Day at Redfern and performing at the Deadly Awards. They were our two on our hit list when we first started. And it was funny, when we were at the Deadlies years ago, and it was me and my brother. We got there late, and Lukey Carroll was at the front, and we got there and was like, "Bah, any tickets?" And he goes, "No ticket, you got tickets?" And we're scratching and scraping, and we looked around, and we said to ourselves, one day we'll be the finishing act, and he said, "No, I'll host it." And then that happened about 3 or 4 years later. That was a special memory we've got with Luke Carroll. He's one of our close brothers, and yeah, that was a nice little memory, I guess.
Now, when you look back at when the raps that you wrote, were you kind of a bit surprised now, because you're a dad now, you are grown up. Yeah, but when you look back at what you wrote back then, were you surprised to realise that you did have an understanding of your culture?
No, I don't know. I don't think we ever. We knew we were connected, and we've always been connected. We go to sort of any town, and we got mob there, or cousins of cousins, or anything like that. So the music was more about us. In the early days, a lot of our music was, I think people would classify it as like radical, I think you'd say, or whatever, but it was just us oozing out our pride and our anger. A lot of our early stuff was about death in custody and and racism, and we used music as an outlet and a tool to express ourselves, because we was expressing ourselves in other ways too. We'd be out and do what young men do, you butt heads and whatever else, but we found that was a good way to, but we kind of knew that what we were writing about, all our mob felt it were connected anyways, but I suppose we didn't really understand sort of how quickly things would take off for us, I guess, musically, yeah.
Yeah. With you, Norma, growing up on the Mish, and your life and your work life, do you see that you have had some success there, or you have been successful in what you've done? You've been involved with the government, you've been involved mixing between the communities and trying to bring understanding to the wider community. Have you found that's been possible for you to bring the success of our people to the wider community?
Well, I certainly would hope so. You're right, I've had a number of different jobs. I've worked in community, I've worked in private sector at Qantas, for example. I've worked for the New South Wales Premier's Department and Cabinet. And I've stood for Parliament as well.
Yes, that's right.
I did. I did my political stuff. So wherever I've gone, I've always, I'm an educator, I'm a teacher. So wherever I go, and whatever I do, it's about me being a teacher and an educator, and that's what I do, and I pass on as much information as I can. And even when I was going through Teachers College, it was funny, I used to think, or just before that, I used to think, I'm not going to teach these white folks anything about my culture because they don't deserve it and they haven't earned it. I've grown up since then, and because I know there's a lot of good people out there who want to know. Look, we still have a lot of issues, we still have a lot of problems out there, but I think we've got so many good non-Aboriginal people. Like just looking at the marching over the bridge that we did, you know, the 88. There's so many good people there. So whatever I do in my life, it's all about teaching. It's all about education. And so if people ask me anything now, I just say as much as information as I can give to them. But when we started talking, I thought, what we've been talking about I've been talking about over the last 12 months is cultural safety. So success for me, for myself and our communities is about cultural safety. So that means that I shouldn't have to go anywhere in any space that I go into and not be Aboriginal, because that's who I am. I can never get away from that, I don't want to. But I shouldn't be asked to leave my Aboriginality out the door when I walk through a door. So we've got a long way to go, a really long way to go, but I think there's so many good things out there as well. So cultural safety is always what comes to mind for me, and if we could do that in our communities, and our communities are healthy, they can still practice culture, they can still, be safe in their families, in their homes, then that's a really good way of going towards success.
What about you, Megan? You said, when you were little, your mother took off and there was that shame job there.
Yeah.
When did you start to feel that you could be successful and turn your inner self around to be open and proud?
Yeah, I think, I remember a really lonely childhood, and I remember times around kind of 10 or 11 that, I was desperately lonely and, thought about suicide even at 11 years of age, and that's pretty extreme, to think that I wasn't worth it. And I think that just really scared me. I think I was someone that too, and I am someone too, that's needed to really work on a higher level, like, connecting to the environment, nature, the bigger picture of who Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people are. Literally that strong spirit. Without that strong spirit, I'm screwed. And I have to work really hard on that, because that early conditioning about shame is just too easy to tap back into. Well, not easy anymore, I don't think. I see triggers and I recognise exactly how they have an impact on me. But I've had to do a lot of work to really own that. And luckily, work like writing, essentially I see myself as a writer, and you do data collection and work on projects to have content to write about. I wish I could sing, but actually whole neighbourhoods would probably howl, the dogs. So I think just making sure that I've got that alignment with myself, and that, without that honesty with myself and how I'm travelling, then, sort of probably the path of destruction's not too far away. So it's really, for me, having some good friends and some people in my life who I can be honest with about myself, how I'm feeling, how I'm travelling, and what I need. And also, like Auntie Norma, as an educator, I think I've taught 21 subjects at uni, from research to Aboriginal health to social science subjects, and always using deaths in custody as examples in curriculum. And it really means putting myself on the line and, that thing of re-traumatising myself. Any time we show stats that are about Aboriginal people dying younger, it sends that implicit message also that that's Dad, that's my brother. They are fellas who don't engage with health services. And so I have to have strategies to keep myself from stay on the right track. Otherwise, I think and that's like a lot of Aboriginal people I'm around, especially with things like drugs and alcohol as well, are right there as issues. And I have to keep cleaning up my sort of side of the street so that I can do the bigger things. And I knew that at that young age, when I had that glimmer of there's a path of this, I was in trouble with police at 12. I had no respect for those police. They said things to me like, make sure whatever you do, you can do with your mother there. And other things that I just thought didn't really make any sense to me. And I thought, I do not want them having power over me and my decisions in the future. So that's things like reading. Oodgeroo Noonuckle's poetry was available to us then, in that we lived in a bush town in central Queensland then, and she'd done a tour, so our school had a couple of things in the library and some pictures of us with her. Little things like that are just such saving graces to keep me thinking, there's a bigger picture, and never believe in this smaller scene of racism, difficulty, exclusion, and that's same true at work. So.
With you, Wok, when did you realise that you had to do more than rap? You were doing mentoring with young men and that. When did you realise that you needed to step up and start looking at being successful or doing more for your people?
Well, I don't know. We do different stuff now. So we do like sports and event management and all this different stuff. But I don't know. I think just at a different stage in my life now, as to I wouldn't say that we're doing more now. I mean, we were sort of, in particular in that music stage, we was out and we were in the Wilcannias and the Broken Hills and the Menindis and all those places, and sitting and doing music workshops with kids back before pretty much anyone was doing it. So we was there and we were helping the kids with their literacy skills and talking and empowering those kids on a one-to-one level. So whilst we're doing other stuff now, which I guess some people may gauge as probably more productive towards the cause, I still don't think it's sort of any different. Like when we were out there doing all that sort of stuff, that was, I don't know, I like to think we made a change on a lot of the youth that were out there. I wouldn't sort of think that we're doing any more or less. Like my brother's just been elected as the state councillor now, so he represents our Sydney Newcastle region, which is great, and he's at that level where he's an advocate for our people. But even him, I don't think he even see himself as doing any more or any less. It was a very special time, and we got to do some great things and connect with some good young kids who are leaders now, and so I don't know. I think we're just on a different journey now. Yeah,
I mean, you had
which
the
we're enjoying.
opportunity to go to a lot of country towns where, there was the black line, curfew time, and seeing these young kids, growing up in a country town and not having that exposure to the wider community, did you notice that our kids needed some more help from yourself or bringing other people in to support them?
I think the big scary word racism, I think that exists. I don't think it's any more or less prominent in those country towns as they're here. It just they deliver it a different way, you know what I mean? So, so whereas they still drink in almost segregated areas in some of those places now, you come to Sydney and I walk around with some of my cousins, and I guess I don't have the issue because I'm light skinned, but if I'm cruising around with some of my cousins that are a bit darker or some of my mates, the kids, they're still getting followed around by security and harassed, and you still feel it. Like even now, on my way down here today, you get edgy when a police car just sort of comes near you. So I think racism, there's all different, I don't know if you'd call it levels, but I guess they're shooting the same gun, but they're just putting different bullets in it.
Does it frustrate you that we're in the 21st century and you still got the cops following you?
No, it's all you can't. I wouldn't say they're following me. It may just be me.
Oh, when they see you out there.
It may just be me, and I might be paranoid. I don't know, but you feel it, and I feel it. But imagine how a lot of our, like I said, in particular, because I always we laugh and tell our stories when we used to be young, me and my cousins, and we'd be out and we'd having a charge, and we'd be partying on or whatever, and then it was time to go home. Well, the cousins would stand behind the bush and they'd say, "Go on, bro, grab a taxi." So I'd stand out there and have to wave the taxi down. I'd open the door, and then I'd say to the taxi driver, "Oh, wait," and all my cousins would jump out and just wouldn't stop for any dark fellas. And I'd say that's probably still a thing now, but that's the society we're in, and no good sort of pretending it's not there and sugarcoating it. But I guess we don't need to focus, or try not to focus on that, because that's the mental change that it's got on our people, and we don't have the physical change that our people had in those early days, like Aunt was talking about, of those missions, and the gun's not pointed right to our head. But I guess the mental change are there for us in today's society, and it's just a matter of us, working out how to break them.
Okay, since for 250 years, in the beginning, we were isolated from the wider community, and then we had to walk in both communities. Now, with you, Norma, growing up on the mission, coming out, getting educated in that, and having to live two ways, walking in the Western way or the Caucasian way, but still maintaining who you are. Was that very difficult for you to do that, or do you see that as something that you could overcome because you knew who you were?
It wasn't difficult for me because I am strong in who I am.
You're an Ingram, yes.
Yeah, as an Aboriginal woman, and as I said, there's seven of us women and my mother. No, it's never been a problem to me, but I do get annoyed when people try to define me, and say to me, but you don't look Aboriginal or all that stuff.
Oh, that's a
You're
terrible
too
one,
pretty to be an Aboriginal.
Yeah.
We get it all.
Yeah.
But when people try to define me and who I am, that really annoys me, because I do walk in those two worlds. I can go back to the mission and slot right in. I could go to Redfern, slot right in. I could go to Vaucluse and slot right in. Because it's about who you are yourself, and having that courage, I guess, that strength and that courage that you can be yourself wherever you go. And I will not let anybody tell me who I am as an Aboriginal person, or what I should think, or what I should believe, how I should live, how I should talk, how I should look. None of that. So it's never been a problem for me. And as I said before, I look at all of those issues as a teaching, educational process. So.
Yeah, and as I said, you're an Ingram, so it's one of those we all have family names that relate to different towns. And it's going, oh, you're an Ingram, or you're this or that, What about with you, Megan? When walking in two worlds, was that difficult for you? And how did you find it, getting educated and then coming out and being somebody who was going to influence other young people?
Yeah, I think I remember being pretty young and identifying that grief was my main experience of life, and that was normal, and I'm really sad for that. It's probably still the same today, that real loss. But then we've had a really wonderful story of, our family, like Williams's, my part of Williams's, we all say it gets better as we go along. We have some really deep bonds and connections and trust, and Yes, I think that really carries me, and knowing that that's really healing, and that there's been some of those really hard times from the past where my mind's been blown how they've been resolved, and things are way better than what I could ever have imagined now.
Do you think that's made you stronger?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
having all that, you know, you're saying all
Yeah.
that trauma, all
Yeah.
those things that happened to me as a child.
Yeah.
But growing up, have you looked back and said, well, wow, you know,
Yeah.
nothing can hurt me, because
It
what I've
definitely-
gone through has taught me.
Yeah, definitely. I've done that sort of process of like a letter to my 9-year-old self, to my 11-year-old self, and really said, you know, what a strong kid there. A lot of those behaviours then, you know, don't work now, kind of thing. Probably duck and weave, go under the radar, keep your mouth shut. A lot of those things don't work now, as even in later teenage years and early 20s, where I've had to do that work to find my voice and find out how much to say, and how, yeah, so I've had to be really kind of systematic actually to go through that, the traumas, and yeah, but I've loved that as well. I do, I feel rock solid, even though, like yesterday I was on an interview panel. We've got this fantastic research job and we had 4 interviewees, and I took note in 3 hours of 40 things that were said. I stopped at 40 from interviewees who want jobs on our project that were discriminatory, derogatory, that real, I want to leave a legacy among the Aboriginal people.
Have you ever had someone say, oh, my best friend's Aboriginal?
Oh, yeah.
Or I've got an Aboriginal family that lives next, so that's supposed to
And-
make a difference?
Sort of like you, but I'm this colour. I cannot do anything about looking white. I walk into a room, people would assume I'm white. And so I get to hear exactly what people say and think about Aboriginal people. And I reckon that's what happens constantly. So with students, I would have had thousands of uni students over the years, and the deplorable things people say about it is real. Yesterday, I stopped at 40, and these are people who wanted a job on our project, 120 grand a year, pay, you know? Yeah, so it's real, and if we don't stay strong and stick together, you know, it's just too easy to fall off. Like burnout comes to mind, you know, definitely had experiences of burnout, but then thinking about taking care of myself so that I don't just give up and go away. Yeah, so.
Walking in 2 worlds. How has it been for you to have that journey, and how are you feeling today?
I feel strong. I feel good. I feel pretty good about who I am, I guess. And like I said, I was very blessed, very, very, very blessed by the way I grew up. Mum and Dad's side, both strong and very heavily involved in Aboriginal politics and that. So, as a kid, I can remember laying on the floor in the lounge room, and they'd be just sitting there around the coffee table having a yarn, and it was always black politics, black top politics. So they're always talking about land councils and all that. And they talk about with kids like saturation. I know our brothers over in New Zealand, the Māori, they have the kura kaupappas and they talk about saturation with their schooling, which is great. But I think I was lucky enough to be saturated as a kid around Aboriginality and black politics. And yeah, you got to, like you said, duck and weave and whatever else, and you got to walk in 2 worlds. But yeah, I just.
Does it get easier for you as
It
you're
does
getting
get
older?
easier,
Because now
and
you're a
that's it.
dad. You're a dad, and you've got children.
It does get
kids.
easier for you, and that's the sad thing. Like with my kids, for instance, my son, when he started high school, we got a high school like he could walk to just around the corner from home, but there's no black kids there, so I'd send him to my high school, which, you know, there's no buses that go there, so we've got to drop him and pick him up, and he's a bit older now, but had to send him there for safety and protection. So whereas you do get, like Aunt said, you keep getting stronger and stronger, and you know you are, and you don't. But I can still remember back to like when you're a kid and you hear those things, and the yeah, but you're not like them and all that sort of stuff. And to hear that now, you just jam people and put them in their place, because you do develop a sense of, you know, you can be articulate and debate, and you get that as you get older and you get more knowledge in that. The thing what frustrates me is it's our kids, the ones who put up with that and have to put up with that, and there's nothing worse, and I reckon every black fella's done it when they're like little, is when you hear it and you're not strong enough to say something, you know, and it just you know, that hurts when you remember back to when you was a little kid and
Have you ever played another role, been someone else to go somewhere? Like, I know when I was young, it was like we'd go to the clubs and we'd put on an American accent.
True.
And we'd say we're African Americans, you know, and can we come in here? And they used to let us in. But if you're, you know, I had 2 other black girlfriends up into the late 80s, and it was like, oh, sorry, no, it's members' night, you know, it's members' night. Yeah. And then when I actually got into media, my white friends would use me to get into nightclubs. And I'd be like, so I'm too black to get into a nightclub, but because I'm a journalist, I can get in a nightclub. But my white friends use me. Not my black, because my black girlfriends could come with me, but then my white ones, because they sometimes couldn't get in. And it's just really weird how you just see things, you know, pulling up bus drivers. You know, when they've got a black boy there and they say, oh, his ticket doesn't work. And I said, is there a problem? You know, and then as soon as you'd say you were a journalist, it'd change. And it was just really, it's just really, really weird. Do you think where we are now in 2021, that things are getting better for First Nation people? Norma? Do you see a difference? Do you see
I see a
movement
difference.
change? Like,
I see a difference, but I see that so many of our people are really out the front doing the stuff. We're constantly teaching the rest of Australia about who we are and our culture.
Isn't that funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're supposed to be alcoholics, you know, domestic violence, uneducated, and yet all our lives we've had to be educators. And there's something that doesn't click within the wider community.
Yeah.
Except if you're with people from non-English speaking, you know, other people that come here from other cultures, then they find out the similarities that we have.
Yeah. It's just all of that with the Uluru statement that, you know, I was a part of it and went up to Uluru for all of that. And there were so many of us that said, look, these are the things that we want for our communities. These are the things that we want a voice in Parliament. We want truth-telling. And we keep on saying all these things. We keep on telling the rest of Australia every single day. I don't know whether they're not listening, whether they're slow learners, or whether, I don't know, but we still get all of those comments, you know, that Megan talks about, that from people saying all these horrible, nasty things. And I said the other day, what is it that the rest of Australia is afraid of? We're 3% of the population. They've taken most of our land. What is it they're afraid of, that they need to say all of these things, and they need to really continuously put us down? Because we're always out there. I think there are great changes. I think there's positive developments, but it's still about that 2 step forward and 1 step back.
With their conscience, and that's it. It's never ever going to change. And they can do all the policies and everything they want, but wherever we're around and they see us and we're there and we're loud and we're living and breathing, we're reminding them of the genocide that they didn't finish with our people, and we're their conscience of all the bad stuff that they've done and they're continuing to do. That's why they do it. There's a lot of good white people out there, don't get me wrong, but we're the conscience, and while ever we're still living and breathing, we're reminding them of the horrible things that they've done to our people and our ancestors, and things they're continuing to do to us. Yeah, there's a lot of success. There is. They're still killing us. They're still killing us in jails. The police are still harassing us. You know, we're still... a lot of people refer to the transgenerational trauma, which a lot of people talk about. Well, I heard it described another way the other day. One of my younger cousins, he calls it a curse that's almost been put on our people. It's just... yeah, it's there. So we're still dealing with the hurt. And I seen a quote that Cody Walker said the other day, and he spoke about Survival Day, and he said that I think his father was 10 before he was acknowledged as, he was still part of that Flora and Fauna Act. And so it's not 3, 4, 5, 6 generations. And he said, and the way his father and mother were treated and raised, that had an impact on the way he's been raised, and it's still having an impact how he's dealing with being a father himself. So I don't know, there's so many different, and just you'll probably know the terminology and all that sort of stuff, but I just heard Aunt talking, like, where their conscience, that's it.
Something that doesn't add up, like these, I bought a little pile of things, like all this stuff we've written, like the Uluru Statement. Between these 3 books alone, there's 200 stories of successive Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people in their voices that we've documented, saying, here's how to do things, here's how to do better. So we've got so many of those solutions identified, and the critical success factors and the KPIs. From Aboriginal perspective, we know how to do all of that research. Why then do we have prison rates doubling and so much worse in the last 20 years?
And also with women these days
that
are traumatised.
Horrendous.
And then the children.
It's about power, but it's just bizarre to think that being 3% of the population, if we're given power, that's going to take so much power away from the 90% rather than the 97% gaining power.
Do you think because, that old world establishment where, we can always say the 70s was a revolution, where things kind of gave people a little bit more freedom, or young people were, because it was our grandparents and that were very conservative, and it was on both sides. You look at your grandmothers and everyone dressed well, everyone's, they were all out there. Then the 70s came along and it was like, woo, we can do anything, and feeling really great, even, with Aboriginal people. But then again, the fight was still on in the 70s. Now we've moved into this technological world where it's just all of a sudden control people by having, this must be the longest you've been off your mobile.
Probably.
Yeah. So we've moved into another era. So they're talking about the old world establishment because they're lost as well.
Yeah.
Because of this new world.
Yeah, that's really hard. I mean, to be, my dad, he can't get reliable internet where he lives. And so, like, there's so much he can't do, let alone kind of eyesight issues, phone issues, the money to get a good phone that he can get a bright screen so that he can, it's so full on.
I'd like to come back to what Waka was talking about, our men being taken away and put into jail, into that system. Yeah. Because remember, it was they used to poison the water holes and the flour and the massacres. We have massacres right here in Sydney. Australia doesn't know about that. They're not really fully aware of that. So they move from that to, to our men and our women being taken. But you know what, I've got to say this, Lola, today what I'm hearing, the public sector is now putting us down. And you cannot say to our Aboriginal people, who's your mob? Because they call it lateral violence.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, so this is another way that they're trying to really take it all away from us.
I even ask white people who their mob is, Caucasian, and
Yeah,
they'll say, I'm Australian.
I just said that to you, eh?
Yeah, straight away, yeah.
This is our cultural practices.
Yeah.
So they're still trying to take that away from us. It's different ways. It's taken it away from us culturally, mentally, not just physically, but spiritually. All of that, they're still trying to do that today. I don't know about the new technology and everything, because but I am aware of all of this other stuff that's going on.
No, we need to wrap it up. And just finally, do you think, that there will be a point in your lifetime where you will see, us having a better lifestyle and everybody coming together as in Australia here? Wok.
I'll be really quick. I'd like to think so. I hope so. I'm not going to say yes. I'd like to say yes, but I'd say I hope so.
Yeah, I think it's contingent on the sort of middle rung of the public service doing better and having relationships with Aboriginal people, not just more Aboriginal people in the public service and decision making, but though the 97% doing better.
And Norma?
No, absolutely not. And it was interesting, I heard this morning that said, well, you know, you have to start from the little tiny ones. We had Murawina, we tried to do that with our little tiny ones. And if you're not going to start with the little ones, you're just going to lose. It'll just fall by the wayside in so many ways. And success is not just any one thing. It's a whole range of things, yeah.
Look, I'd like to thank the three of you, Norma Ingram, Megan Williams, and Wok Wright. And I'd like to thank everybody else for tuning in. This gives you just a little bit of an insight of how we're feeling today in the 21st century. We know that things could get better. We've got languages being taught in the schools today. We've got Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal kids learning them. So I'm hoping within the next generation or two, people will be trilingual and they'll have a lot more respect. So, you know, thank you very much for tuning in today and giving you a little bit of understanding from, I suppose, 3 different generations here, or 4 generations that we have here on the forum today. So thank you very much.